I bought this house in September of 2020 and I got a pretty good deal on it. I spent about 43 grand and it's a fixer-upper and it's not in the best neighborhood, but I love house projects. I got some gifts from my friends and a few free furniture items to get me started. I don't want to fully furnish the house until I have finished some of these projects. So far, the projects that I have completed include the privacy fence, the kitchen, the bathroom, the sunroom. I had a little driveway built and did some front landscaping and waterproofed my basement. These projects that I've done have made a huge difference in the house. I'd say the kitchen and the bathroom have been the biggest difference, and now that my sunroom is almost done, I'm gonna have my workshop with all my tools. I also had a deck built, but I haven't done much else in the backyard, so I haven't gone over everything that I'll be doing back there, but it'll be on the list eventually. So let's take a look at all the projects that I've done and how my house has transformed in the last 2 years. The first project I did at my house was have the privacy fence installed. Now, a lot of friends were like, why are you making that your first project? Wouldn't you rather do the bathroom or the kitchen? But to be honest, the security was kind of important to me, and my house was right next to a big rental property, and there was just absolutely no privacy or security at all. So technically you're supposed to get the land surveyed and have the new fence go exactly where the old one was, but I didn't want to bother with that. So instead I had a friend come take care of the trees that were in the way, and I had my new privacy fence built directly on the inside. So I ended up losing about a foot or two of space in my backyard, but I really don't mind. And the wood from the trees gave me some extra firewood, which was really nice. And in my typical fashion, I decided to do this project when lumber was at its most expensive. I think it was 2020 still whenever I got it started, but it had to be done, and I didn't know when prices were going to drop again. I'm pretty sure the prices dropped right when I finished the project, but that's okay, because the end result was absolutely beautiful, and I am just so pleased with it. So now that it's been about 2 years, I decided to go through and survey the fence and see if there were any places that needed to be trimmed up. I had a few limbs growing over that could potentially damage some of the boards. I had a couple of boards that were popped out of place that needed to be fixed. So for this project, it wasn't too hard going through and patching up anything that I had to work on. The next project I did after having my privacy fence built was to have a driveway installed. I did this because at the time I had a very large bus that I needed to park somewhere safely. So I had a large amount of gravel delivered to my house. They couldn't get all the way in the backyard because of the roof, so my contractor helped disperse it throughout the yard, and it was quite the task. And it wasn't as expensive as I thought it would be. But in my backyard, not much grows back there anyways, so I thought this would be a good use of the space. So I got some paver stones, and we spread those out and made it the length that it needed to be for the bus. And we ended up spreading all of the gravel out. I put down some boards instead of a layer of plastic because I wanted to reuse the boards. Those came out of my basement. I try to reuse things as I can so that stuff doesn't just get thrown away, but that was kind of a dumb idea. But anyways, I had my bus at the time. I've since sold it, and I'm glad that I have because the schoolie life is just not for me. But I have a driveway there now. Another project I had to do was working on my basement because it was cold and drafty and moldy, and there were all these obnoxious ceiling panels just kind of nailed to the ceiling that I had to pull off. And then I went through and cleaned out the crawl space and found all sorts of bizarre treasures. Got a washer and dryer set from a friend and decided to go about demolding it. So I cleaned everything real well, and then I had to go through and also bleach all the surfaces to try to get rid of the mold. If you can see here, there's parts of my floor that need repaired. So bleaching it was kind of a nightmare, but we got it cleaned up real good, and then I went through and kind of examined which parts were leaking, where water was getting in, and decided to waterproof it. Once my basement was properly waterproofed, cleaned, bleached, and demolded, my contractor came and painted the entire thing white to try to seal it in, the ceiling, the walls, the floors, and everything. And then another friend came over and checked on the breaker box because there were some live wires, and he had another outlet installed for me. And then we got to do the fun thing, which was sealing up these stairs, and I decided to have a time capsule party. So a bunch of my friends came over with all sorts of fun treasures and different things, and we buried them under the stairs and then sealed them up, and it was an absolute blast. So that was shortly after I had moved in, and now I've done a few other things to the basement. I had to get a new washer and dryer, which I've had installed there. Eventually I'm going to get this window replaced, and I'm not ventilating the dryer well. I just kind of broke a hole in the window to make that happen, which is not how you're supposed to do that. But I had to waterproof this back wall a second time. Surprisingly, for an old house, not much water gets in, but it is drafty down here. At some point, I'm probably going to put some better flooring down. When I first bought this property, the cats had taken over it and were pooping all underneath the front porch, and it stunk so bad, and the smell was so awful that it like wafted into the rest of the house. So we got under the front porch, we cleaned it out real good. I tried to use baking soda, I tried to use vinegar. We pulled off these panels because the cats were still getting in there. I wanted to let it air out, and I cleaned it out real good. I shoveled out a whole bunch of cat poop. Cats were still coming, and let me tell you, I've tried every single cat repellent known to man. None of them really work, but that's okay. So then we put a trellis in there. I should have painted it before I put it on, but you know, this is how I like to do things sometimes. Got it all cleaned up looking, and that looked a lot nicer, and bought some mulch and some plants, and my mom came over and helped me do some nice front landscaping. And we had it looking real good. We put some plants in there, we put some mulch in there, and I was really happy with the result, but unfortunately, cats will follow their smell back to where they were. So they were coming and pooping in all of my hard work. It looked so beautiful, and I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna work because they can dig in the mulch. So I had to try a different approach and get these little spiky gum balls because it makes it hard for them to dig because they're tough. So I scattered those throughout, and it kind of worked. It's probably the best repellent is just making the ground not comfortable for them to walk on, unfortunately. So then I added a bunch of pine cones because I thought that looked a little bit nicer. My only plant that survived were the boxwoods. Eventually I'll do something nice with this space. When I noticed the seam popping out on some of my new windows, I decided to contact the company that did it because they are absolutely wonderful. They went through and had replaced all of the windows. So as I'm going through all of these projects, I'm seeing what needs to be updated, what needs to be fixed. This is what the old windows looked like, and they were garbage. There were huge gaps, and like I couldn't retain any kind of heat or cool. And then when they were replaced, oh my gosh, they are just the best. So the seams started popping out. I contacted the company Nemo, and they came out again to fix the little parts that were popping out. But the windows themselves have always been just perfect and intact, and you wouldn't believe the difference that it made in my utilities. I I can't tell you how important it is to have new windows in the home. So Nimmo came out again to hammer in those seams that were coming out and was thrilled to do it. They're really just the best. Probably one of the biggest projects I've done in my house was the kitchen because I had to structurally alter some things. First, there was this tiny doorway, which I absolutely hated because it closed off the kitchen from the living room. So my contractor had it ripped out to make the whole space a lot more open. I went to work gutting the kitchen, and I was hoping maybe the plaster was intact, but it was not. A lot of it just crumbled away and fell to the ground, so I had to do a lot of cleanup in this room, and I did not prepare properly and just chucked all the trash in the backyard. The kitchen project is when I realized that I did not actually have beautiful original hardwood floors. I had like a soft pine subfloor, and it was not fit for sanding and restaining. So we ended up reinforcing the whole thing with some layers of plywood, and then we put vinyl flooring on top of that. Once the hard part was done, my contractor got all of the cabinets installed, and we got the sink installed and a lot of the other stuff, so it started coming together and actually looking like a room. And these projects always take a lot longer than I expect them to. I just love my tiny oven. I think it's adorable. And then after that, it was mostly cosmetic stuff. We did some painting and we got it all together. I really like retro kitchens, so I went for a very retro theme with the orange, yellow, maroon color and brown. And after a few last minute touch-ups and adding a few things, the last thing that really had to be done was installing the light fixture. And I still cannot get over these before and after pictures. Like, it just turned out so good. So I got it all intact, everything was working, and now that it's been about a year and I'm following up with my old projects, there were just a couple of touch-ups that needed to be done. I had to touch up the paint in a few places, but that wasn't a big deal. I had to elevate the oven to make sure it was level with the countertop, and my plan is to add some better food storage options in the future. It wasn't my intention to do my sunroom as soon as I did, but it had to be done because the roof was collapsing. So I had replaced the old door a long time ago because you could barely get it open, the handle was broken, and again, security, so that project kind of, came ahead of a lot of other things. But as far as the rest of this ugly room, I just wasn't worried about it because it was intact until I noticed that the roof was caving in and that water was getting everywhere. So this room was obviously an add-on. It had that tile floor. I was kind of mapping out how I wanted to do it. I went about gutting it. Originally, I wanted to just do everything over the walls, but then I realized, it's all got to come out. And as we started gutting it and pulling it apart, I started to realize why my house still stunk. Because animals had been pooping up in the insulation. They'd somehow been getting into the rafters, and there was just, as the insulation came down and as we ripped it all apart, piles of poop. And I don't know if it's squirrel poop or what it is. There were even a couple of bird nests up there. Yeah, it was really, really gross, and the smell was absolutely terrible. So, found this egg. Yeah, there was nothing in it. Don't worry. So gutting it was probably the worst part of the whole thing, but we got it all done. We got it all cleaned up. And then most of the insulation, surprisingly, was still intact, which kind of made me wonder why the owners didn't just drywall it to begin with. Like, why did they put up those nasty wall panels? Anyways, the next step was doing the walls. I had to have the light fixture replaced. Had myself an outdoor light fixture installed. And I was really happy about that because that means more security in the backyard. And then my contractor had this really cool idea about using recovered fence boards to do the walls, which looks so much cooler than drywall. So he did most of the walls and part of the ceiling with these recovered fence boards because this room that I keep calling my sunroom, it's not an actual sunroom, is going to be my workshop. Now, I tried to do some things myself and I did a pretty bad job. I'll have to fix that later. But for the most part, it all came together. I put up the shelves myself. I was able to do most of the flooring myself, like these beautiful vinyl floors. Some people were like, why would you cover up those marble floors? It's not marble. It's cheap, crappy tile that was put in here. So no, it's getting covered up with the beautiful vinyl floors. And just look at these before and after shots. So this is gonna be my workshop. This is where I'm gonna do all my work. Now, there were a few things that I had left unfinished because I was in a hurry to get stuff done. And one of those things was the floors. I didn't complete all of the little flooring pieces. So I went to work, and it's really not that hard. I didn't do a good job. These aren't perfect. They might have to be redone someday, but I don't care. Another thing is the trim along the door. I never had trim installed, and there's my horrible drywall mistake. But you know what? I'm not gonna worry about that for now. I'm gonna deal with that later because it's just not really a pressing matter to me. And then I wanted something to cover up the base of the cabinets because it just looks really crappy and there's a big gap back there where mice could get in. So I found these 2x4s which fit perfectly, and I finished the floor and put down the mat, and I'm gonna call this room done for now. My favorite project I've done so far has been the bathroom because it has been probably the biggest transformation. The old bathroom was absolutely disgusting, the shower was basically unusable, and unbeknownst to me, water had been leaking into the floor and the floor was rotten and the whole thing was about to cave in. So I decided that now would be a good time to remodel the bathroom because I can't have a floor that's caving in, that's dangerous. Plus it was absolutely disgusting. So I went about ripping out all of the fixtures. I had to get help ripping out the toilet and the tub and the sink, but the drywall and the tile, I was able to do most of that myself. And I didn't wear the right type of mask and my throat was messed up for like a week. So this is a reminder to take the necessary precautions and use the correct safety gear. I got the whole thing gutted and then realized I had never made arrangements to have it all taken away, so I ended up paying a friend who charged me a very nice fee, and he hauled it all off for me. The floor was rotten. We had to replace parts of it with the plywood, and then look at this beautiful tile. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And then we had the electrical circuits installed and the light fixture, which I just love this light fixture so much. There were a few plumbing pieces to be fixed, had the drywall installed, and then I chose this color. It's called Olympic White, and I did 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of the paint. And I think that was after 1 coat. It always takes more coats than you think it's going to. I did very little of the bathroom myself. I gutted it myself and I did the painting myself. People keep saying, wow, you did a great job on your bathroom. I'm like, haha, no, I paid professionals to do that because I want it done right, and they did a fabulous job. They had to go in and fix a pipe through my bedroom. Oh, it's so clean and bright and just so beautiful. I love it so much. And then after it was all done, I was finally able to decorate it, which of course is the most fun step. There's all my treasures. And the finished bathroom, after putting up my adorable decor items, is just everything I ever wanted. It's my spa bathroom. So look at these before and after shots. They are insane. Now, there are a couple of things I'm gonna need to touch up. One is that I got the wrong shower curtain for this freestanding tub, so water sprays all over the floor, and I came up with this like really cheap, quick solution. And there's a couple of paint touch-ups I need to do, but other than that, it's flawless. So now that I'm halfway done remodeling my house, there's only a little bit left to do, and I'm so glad that I did the hardest projects first. You can see here, this is the old linoleum. It's all gonna get ripped out, and it's all gonna be replaced with the nice vinyl floors, which I need to scrub. They're a little bit dirty. These vinyl floors are going to span the entire house. So the reason I got this mat down is because the floors are staggered. They have to be staggered from room to room, otherwise it doesn't look seamless, so it can't be just a straight line whenever you get to each room. Unfortunately, that makes it harder for them to install. Now, I'm not going to install them directly over the top of the old laminate because it's disgusting and I want to rip it out. I'm going to have to rip all of it out and probably put down a layer of plywood and make sure the floor is secure, clean it all out real good. Same with this, I'll be ripping out these old tiles and then I'll be extending the vinyl floors throughout the rest of the house. Another thing I'm gonna have to do, all of these old wall panels, I absolutely hate them. They're disgusting, they're awful. It's the reason why I've got these silly tapestries on the wall and my house looks like a college dorm. It's okay. I'm ripping out all of these wall panels eventually, and I'll be replacing the whole thing with drywall. Same thing in each bedroom. Gonna rip out the wall panels, gonna rip out the old laminate flooring, replace it with drywall and vinyl flooring. A lot of the ceiling is intact. I want to replace both light fixtures in the bedrooms. I'm going to replace this ceiling fan, which miraculously hasn't come out of the wall yet. Also going to replace this light fixture. So most of the projects I have left are just cosmetic things, but it's still going to be pricey because this is a large space and that's a lot of drywall and it's going to be a lot of work. So I'm going to wait for a while, pay off some debt, hibernate, and enjoy my half remodeled home.